been taken from him. Now we're about to scrutinize a bit more of what we've learned today. This is the moment of truth. Now we know what the NPP stands for, the social contract they're putting before us all in an attempt to get us to sign it on December 7th so they can get an opportunity to implement. Raymond, you were summarizing for us what your top headliners are from what you've heard. You've mentioned the three key things that Bawumia himself says as he went to the country to talk to people. Yeah. People said cost of living, roads, and jobs.
Yes, were the three most important things that he engaged the people and they gave him. So he restructured everything he's going to say in that particular direction. Then he started with the sustain and expanding of the job sector, but also made some points about what they will do when it comes to cost of living. In fact, he said they will further accelerate the growth and expansion of the economy over the next 4 years, achieve and sustain an average 6% growth. And he was quick to mention specifics, like the sectors they were going to expand: agriculture, mining, ID, 1D1F, emerging industries, sports, tourism, and creative arts. Increase public-private sector partnerships as an important funded model for delivering public infrastructure. And he spent some time on that, basically saying that no matter what happens, government is going to be freed of some resources, because instead of building, say, the Tema motorway, well, they get private sector involved. When they build it, then they can find ways of actually getting the payments down through that process. So government will not have to pump money into that project and use it for other things. He also talked about establishing an independent fiscal responsibility council. And by this, he was clear that they were supposed to not only give proper advice, because people have raised concerns about the current Fiscal Responsibility Council, but the law itself will be reviewed so that they will not exceed, is it 105%?
Yeah, 105%.
Yeah, so that is also part of the point. Of course, specifically what he said is amend the Fiscal Responsibility Act to add a new fiscal rule that requires expenditure in any year does not exceed 105% of the previous year's tax revenue. That is what he said in connection with that. Training 1 million youth in digital skills, you've heard that. So skills also came in. Then he spent a long time in ICT. But what I summed up with was that till now, I've seen interesting points being raised. I've seen some that I'm very doubtful about. Some that require proper, further and better particulars to expand it to our hearing. What I'm here to hear and see are the catchy slogans that had actually come with NPP manifestos that at the end of the day, we knew free SHS came out. We knew one district, one factory came out. We knew one village, one dam came out. Those are the ones that appear missing in here. Maybe they'll couch and sell that later on.
Yeah, and that is a key thing they were waiting for. But one of the things that struck me is this is very comprehensive from what he put out there. It touches every part of our national life. What for you were the key highlights?
Let me just touch a bit on what Raymond said. So, you're comparing 2016, even before the 2016 manifesto of the NPP. You had the free SHS was since 2008. You had the one district, one factory. You had the, one village, one dam. You had the one constituency, $1 million. You had the Zongo Development Fund and others. And it's something you don't hear, because at the end of the day, people are going to go around and ask the question, what is he promising? You're not going to say, oh, he intends to do this, what is he promising? What is he promising? And so, I think that now the NPP would have to go back and actually look at the manifesto all over again and begin to do like we do here at Journeys when it comes to our hotline documentaries. Just get a one-sentence thing that would really resonate with Ghanaians. I like the Ghana First thing, the fact that you want to, if there's anything you have to buy, you have to look within. But in looking within also, it'll be important for us to know those Ghanaians who their beneficial owners are. It's not just saying I'm buying from, say, Evans Mensah, but if you're buying from Evans Mensah,
who is a front for a foreign interest?
So Evans Mensah must not be a front for a foreign interest, because I have consistently maintained that we should be looking forward to creating Ghanaian billionaires. And so it mustn't be a case that every government comes in and would want to cripple Ghanaians, some Ghanaian businesses, and improve others. But this is it for me. I look at the health bit, for instance. It says, completing the digitalization of public healthcare institutions under the e-health project. So then it talks about scaling up telehealth services, establishing 2 additional sites in addition to the existing 6 when it comes to the zipline, phone seek, to enhance drone delivery services, to ensure nationwide coverage and ensuring interoperability of the National Electronic Pharmacy Platform, then offer incentives for healthcare to buy. These are things you've had in budget past. These are things you've had in budget past, okay? So this is it for me. I like the reduction of charges at our ports, okay? Because today, our ports...
Making it as competitive as Togo.
As Togo, which, I mean, today our ports are not competitive.
And to be fair to him, this is something that he's been talking about for a while now. Yeah. And for some reason, it hasn't fully materialized, but he's sticking to it. And for me, I was looking at, because he's been a vice president before and the chair of the economic management team, how is he approaching consolidation in some of the things that he started already that hasn't fully materialized?
But you see,
and you've seen that in this document, some of the things he's doing already has started. He intends to consolidate and to complete if he becomes a president. That's one of those.
Yes, of course. I mean, when he announced in 2019, was it 2019? No, when he announced about the benchmark, reduction at the time, I mean, we also why, when he did that. So yes, that's something that he did. But this is the other point for me. Okay, this is the other point for me. I listened to him. He talks about using the private sector a lot. I mean, engaging in PPPs that will lead to the building of houses. He talks about schools. I would want to know, and he says this is going to free up some,
3% of GDP. That's about 30 billion.
30 billion Ghana cedis. I would want to see the math behind that. I would want to see, for instance, how he intends to achieve that. So when you say, okay, I want to build roads, we can say, oh, they will tow the roads. Okay? When you say you want to build schools, they build the schools and lease to government, and government pays them how much? They build the schools, so if I am leasing it, so we need to look at, because first of all, we need to find out whether it is financially prudent. Is it just a case that you are freeing up fiscal space to do other things, and so instead of, say, paying this year, you're paying over a 10-year period? We then must have the discussion and decide.
It's like borrowing anyway.
It's like borrowing. We then must have the discussion and decide, within that 10 years that I'm going to be paying for this, how much is that going to cost me? If I had paid it within the period, we will do the time value of money analysis and indicate which is better. So it's not just saying, I want to do this, and that's the end of it. Also, he's talked about, for instance, the private sector leading in businesses, establishing industries, and all of that. It's not in itself bad, but again, how is that going to be different from, the one district, one factory? Because we know the lessons from the one district, one factory. And research will indicate to you that, look, existing businesses create between 60 to 80% of new jobs. And the various literature will put it, some say 60, some say 70, some say 80. So to be on the safer side, we say existing businesses create between 60 to 80% of new jobs. And where communities export jobs, there's a promotion of the services sector even within that community. How are we doing this?
Yeah. So, and just as to wrap up, I also, my highlight was the tax reform. He says his objective is to achieve low tax, high coverage, which is the objective. So reduce the taxes and improve coverage and expand the net. But what I didn't hear is, so what really is the ultimate goal? What is it? What goal do you have? We currently know, for example, I was looking at something to the effect that we currently have a 13.1 tax to GDP ratio. With what you're proposing, for example, what target do you want to hit in terms of increasing the tax to GDP ratio? Do you want to at least just do the Africa average of 16.5, or you want to do more to 18 or 25? What is it? I want to hear that. And how then do you use your low tax, high coverage policy to deliver that?
Whenever we talk about COVID-19, one of the things we don't talk about is the fact that COVID-19 presented as an opportunity to actually help a lot of Ghanaian businesses. Over 100,000 MSMEs were helped. They're giving a 2-year moratorium, at which they had to start repayment. It will be important to know how many of those businesses are currently registered and paying taxes to the state. Okay, these were funds that were giving to them. Whether they're making losses or not, we should be told, for instance.
Because the criteria for getting the funds, right?
Yes, the criteria for getting the funds was to be registered. So these people became known to tax authorities. How many of these businesses are paying taxes, for instance. So it's, I mean, it's okay to say you're giving tax amnesties. It's okay to say you're having a flat rate, but it's also important because you're consistently.
And he also defined what his tax amnesty is. This is a whole comprehensive broad of tax forgiveness, including interest and penalties, all of it.
Yes.
You asked for that, Ella. You got that clarity?
I asked, but yes, I mean, I will go and check. You know, you were saying I'll go and check what is in the document again to actually compare that to what he said. We'll do the analysis. But yes, he's clarified that. But this is it for me. So once you're talking about taxes, it is expected that at least you tell us how many of these persons.
But hold on, no. Let's let what's here, so we can get it. Implement wide-ranging tax reform. Offer a one-time tax amnesty to all Ghanaians and corporate through tax amnesty from the payment of taxes from the previous years. B, the waiving of interest and penalties for failures to file taxes in previous years. And this will enable everyone start their tax journey afresh. It will wipe the slate.
And the reason behind that made sense to me. He
Absolutely
says,
no payment of tax.
But what he said, and the reason was, from what he articulated, I want to introduce and reform the tax structure. And he claims that his reform is the first since independence. Again, something that we'll have to fact check. That this flat tax that he's coming to put out there, he says is the first since independence. And that if this is what I'm coming to do, then it makes sense to let everybody else start afresh.
I'm not saying that this is the first time you're reforming tax.
No, he's talking about the flat tax.
The flat tax.
The flat tax reform, he says, hasn't been done since independence, and that is what he's coming to do. That's something that we definitely need to fact check, right? But the reason why is then, you know, before when he said he would do tax amnesty, questions were why? I mean, in the past, we expected that the tax amnesties will simply mean you don't pay the penalties, but the tax still remains, you have to pay. But now he's defined that. But he's defining it in the context of introducing, you know, this very broad tax reform that he believes. Before you do that, let everybody start afresh.
And listen,
does that make sense to you, though? And I know you are a taxman.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Look, it's actually a way of getting people into the tax nets. So he says, you know what?
This scheme is different from the VAT flat rate scheme.
Different from that.
Yes, it's different from that.
And this is what he says, though, just to break that down further. He says that this flat tax rate will be benchmarked against, so it's a flat rate against your income. So it's flat, not only income of businesses, but salaries of workers. So in other words, what I got him saying was that if you earn a certain percentage, if you earn a certain amount, that flat rate is, say, 5% of whatever you earn is what you're going to tax. And it's across the board.
But
that's the sense I get. You have to still clarify. And that if you also earn, you're individual, and your salary is, say, 5,000 cedis a month, regardless of what you do, there's a flat percentage that you pay as tax on that salary that you have. They have to explain that, but that is the sense I get across the board.
Currently, the progressive income tax, you know, I'll check the rates again. If you earn this amount of money, this is how much you pay.
Yes.
Then it moves up. As you earn more, you pay more.
Because we wanted to make it progressive.
He's talked about the Estonian example, and that's something we'll look at later on.
But if this is what he's proposing, is this regressive?
Again, I want to know.
Because if you earn $1 billion and you still pay 5% of that.
Again, I want to know.
And I earn 5,000 cedis and I pay 5% of that.
Because your 5% is not the same as his 5%.
Of course, it's not
the same as his 5%. But I want to know what he means. Because
they need to definitely explain in the breakdown a bit more.
You would explain that. But I was saying that the thing about a tax amnesty, again, because we've tried a lot of ways of trying to get people into the tax net, and we have failed. You know, in the past, we used to have this conversation about, you know, everybody who's a beneficiary of free SHS, for instance, should have a guardian or relative, a guardian who's known to tax authorities. And so we even suggested at some point in time that beneficiaries of free SHS, your Ghana card, at the time we're talking about tax identification number, should be the qualification for your ward to enjoy free SHS. At least get that person known to tax authorities. Then tax authorities will follow up on that person. That didn't work. Then we came to, you know, every Momo go and register and all of these things. We said we wanted to get people to know all of this. It has not worked. He's introducing a new approach. Well, I mean, on paper, hearing him explain for the first time, I don't think it's a bad thing. Would people take advantage of it? Is another thing. Would people take advantage of it? Is another thing.
This must come from a background where we have identified that to be the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Because, you see, taxation is sometimes funny. Generally, people don't want to pay taxes, especially in parts of the world where people do not see a direct link between their taxes and the goods, the public goods they are getting. So there is an undercurrent as to whether clearing the slate
We'll get more people in.
will get more people in.
But that's not
and
all.
we'll deal with the undercurrent issue.
Clearing the slate and having a low tax regime.
I get your
Those
point.
two. Wouldn't that do the trick?
The tax regime is just one of the reasons why people are not paying the taxes. I've realized, and I pointed out that philosophical fight that when public goods appear not to meet the standards or the needs of the people, some say it's when you pay more taxes that public goods are delivered. Others say it is when public goods are delivered that people are incentivized to pay taxes. As to whether people who do not or find means of dodging, that's using the word properly, taxes, or some will call it tax planning, but dodging taxes.
Permissible by law.
Dodging taxes is truly the reason, because you should be able to, Evans, target to know that 80% of the people are not paying tax because it's a cumbersome system. It's a difficult structure, and it's unreasonable.
Yeah, but
But if they're not paying the tax because they fundamentally believe that you have no moral authority in taking the tax,
So, I mean,
clearing the slate will not incentivize them to pay the tax.
So, you're very right. It'll be important to know what sort of research would have led to this. But I also belong to the school of thought that says that you must deliver the public good to incentivize people to pay tax.
I see.
So I am not those who say, okay, look, the only reason why I find it easier to go and pay tax is because I criticize those who don't pay.
Yeah.
And because I'm going to criticize those who don't pay, I don't want to
You need the moral authority.
Yeah, the moral authority to do that. But
Not
look,
that he is naturally inclined to feel that it is worth doing.
I have professors who have sent me messages and these are professors of economics and finance who have said, what is there to show the prudent usage of our taxes to warrant my willingness to pay these taxes? So I say, if you use it well, because currently we are paying. If you use it well, people would have no problem coming into pay. But let me just end on this note. So when it comes to corruption, I've heard him talk about, the things that, they've done in the past, they've continued to fight, but you don't get, clear-cut things on what he intends to do in the fight against corruption. The passage of the public, the conduct of public officers bill, for instance, is something I didn't hear him talk about. Okay.
And the 2022 amendments to the, what they call it, criminal code, which would then even inculcate corruption practices within corporate institutions. All of that. He's been sitting with the Attorney General's office for God knows how long.
Yeah. So you say that is a low-hanging fruit that he can push.
Quickly, we are
let's wrap up on this very controversial note, but he touched on it. Family values, the protection. He says he will protect cultural and family values. And when he said that, there's a bill whose title sounds very, very familiar to what he said he's going to protect, right? But he was categorical in making the point that he will protect Ghana's cultural and family values. There's a bill to that effect. How did you read that when you heard him say that? Because remember, coming into today, the biggest controversy is this bill is still stuck between Parliament and the executive.
Yes.
At least more in Parliament than executive, because the Supreme Court...
Basically on the table of the Supreme Court.
Yes, about to be dispatched, but held there now.
And has not been
stuck there, hasn't been... And then the judiciary is also adjudicating this particular matter. The key question then becomes the next president, and there's a demonstration coming up very soon. Whoever the next president is, what will he do with this particular bill which was passed by Parliament? He says he will protect Ghana's cultural and family values. Did he mean on day one he will assent to this bill if it's transmitted?
First and foremost, President Akufo-Addo,
and this is very briefly,
had cause to say in a church that he would never allow gay marriage in the Republic of Ghana, except that was not the point in discussion.
No, that's not it.
Again, Dr. Bawumia had said before that he does not support LGBTQ or whichever alphabet follow activities. He has said that before. So to me, I'm not surprised, except that what does the Protect Ghanaian really, truly mean? Because there's a system that's in motion. What people want to know whether or not you support the bill and you think it should be assented to by the president.
Bottom line.
That is clarified. That is so straightforward. As for protection, there so many things can constitute protection in this country.
Okay. So, okay, you?
Well, Evans, you see the question, you know the question you asked us? What does he mean? What did he mean?
Yeah.
Because you do not have clarity on what he meant. Okay?
Except that what he said he would protect sounds very much like the bill, which is.
But you see, when the
abeyance.
man goes to Kumasi and says, I am against these things, I'm a Muslim, I'm against these things, you expect him to be bold and say, I am against this. Not, so now we're beginning to think, what constitutes Ghanaian cultural and family values? Is it because there's an act of parliament, proper human, sexual and family values?
It is not even an act of parliament.
It's a bill that has been passed.
Today, the determination of those values are what the Constitution mentioned in a few points. That bill had as its intent categorically stating what those values are and what ought to be protected.
Yeah.
So in Bawumia's mind today, what will be those cultural
values that and by the way, immediately he said it.
He scattered the most important.
Yeah, but immediately he said it. Within the context of the controversy, anybody listening to him would think the bill.
Oh, he supports the bill.
The bill. So when his people come tomorrow, that's a question that we'll ask, obviously. Did he mean the bill? And then he'll have to tell us what he meant. I'm looking forward to that. Listen, gentlemen, thank you very much. We have...
Evans, we'll continue the discussion on the Super Morning.
On the Super Morning Show. Tomorrow. And of course, across our shows, doing some analysis, by the way. We have a few days ahead, exciting days ahead in prospect, because the NDC's manifesto is coming on Saturday too. So we have both sides to look at and analyze for you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. This is your election headquarters, and it's always brought to you by our partners across the board. Indeed. Enjoy the rest of your evening.